What's going on, everyone? Hope you all had a great weekend. Welcome in. Here's a fresh new week. It's a Monday. Welcome into the Traded Black podcast. I am your host, Shad Dales. Big show coming up. New CEO of Canopy Growth, Luke Mongeau. Well, not necessarily new. He's been on the job for 4 or 5 months now, but we're going to have him on and talk a little bit about his latest earnings, including some notable numbers that he announced on Friday with adjusted EBITDA losses going down as much as 60%, plus a few other things. We'll get his vision as we had him on, let's say, a month ago, and really to find out, is his fingerprints on this company now taking shape? And if so, what can we expect heading into 2025? So feel free to leave any comments and questions that you want us to ask. More than happy to reach out to him and ask some of those questions that you guys would like to know more of. As well, Michael Bronstein's going to come on. The state Senate in Pennsylvania is in session this week, so we're going to find out what bills are being proposed. Obviously, adult use is going to be at the forefront, or one of them at the forefront. So we'll ask what this might mean for adult use in Pennsylvania. And again, what can we expect next? Plus, some new hemp regulations in the state of Florida. It's official now. So we'll find out what those are and what that means in the state. So lots to get into. Let's welcome in AV. You're on a Monday, and good to see you.
Good to see you. Yeah, a lot to unpack.
Yes, lots to unpack. And let's just jump right into it because I know a lot of people wait for this. Let's welcome in Luke Mongeau back to the podcast, CEO of Canopy Growth. Good to see you, sir. Happy Monday. How are things?
Happy Monday to you as well. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah. How'd you like the first interview with us? Did you get a good feel and everything? Because I know there's a lot of people anticipating for the second interview, and it's funny how we had you on last, and the number one questions are, when is he on next? So looks like you're a fan favorite.
I love it. I've been in the industry now for pretty much five months, and I'm loving it. Having a lot of fun. We're doing a lot of great work, laying foundations for success to come. So great industry so far.
Well, look, you stepped into this role back in January, and while this quarter isn't entirely yours, the changes are becoming more and more noticeable. So when you look at Q1, what signals that this quarter, like with the starting line, that you're starting to turn around your vision, and is that starting to come to fruition based on, like I said, you've been in the role now for like I said, since January?
Yeah, I would say the first quarter of 25 was probably the last quarter that we were operating on the previous strategy. So what we've done during that quarter is really lay the foundation for the future. As I think I mentioned the last time, for me, I was happily surprised to see that at Canopy, the right foundations were there. This is a very group of talented people, in most cases with the right assets, but somehow they weren't focused enough. They weren't synchronized. They were too many priorities. So behind the scene, we've been rearranging the organizational structure, simplifying the business, the product line, and really focusing people.
Was there too many things going on at once? Because we see this sentiment across the board right now with a lot of companies. Let's simplify things, focus on the things that we do well. And I assume that's your story as well right now?
Yeah, well, I would say absolutely. And I would say the structure got in the way of people doing their best work. And so first thing we've done in the first quarter is really realign the strategy against the biggest opportunities that are right in front of us. So we're not talking about strategies that will take 12, 18 months, that will require tens of millions to happen. Now, first strategy is pretty simple. We have a very robust and healthy medical business in Canada and abroad. In Canada, we're a very strong number two, highly profitable. We've built a back of the house infrastructure where we can delight patients with the right products and everything. So first thing we've done is we've realigned around medical globally. So now there's one individual reporting directly into me, responsible for Canada, Germany, Poland, Australia, and so on. So we've got one global priority, very well organized, very well synchronized. Second thing we did is we restructured the operations, our supply chain. Our supply chain used to be run pretty much by our Canadian rec business. So you can imagine conflicting priorities, a lack of synchronization with global opportunities or medical opportunities. So now supply chain operations reports directly into me, allowing optimal allocation, planting decision, harvesting decisions to be made ultimately by me to make sure that the flower goes to the best opportunity. And finally, what we've done, if we streamline our Canadian rec business, we haven't diminished our dedication to the Canadian rec business. Actually, it's gone up. But what we've done is we've dramatically simplified the portfolio. Instead of playing in every single category, sub-segment, every size and everything, we narrowed our focus against the segment that consumers want and the segments that provide higher margins.
Yeah, makes sense.
With the realignment of the business and with the focus on international as well as medical, I know the international segment saw a decline in the quarter. I think it was 35% year over year. Was that decline attributed to realignments within the business and strategic initiatives about shifting supply chain? Was it market dynamics? Like, can you give some color on what led to that decrease? And I guess what you're planning to do to get those markets moving back in the right direction?
Yeah, good question. And I'm a bit embarrassed to say that those declines were lacked from an internal lack of synchronization.
Okay.
We have a team in Germany, in markets across Europe and Australia. And what this team has done is they demonstrated that they can sell really good flowers to patients. And over the years, over the recent quarters, we've had very good start. And then we run out of supply. And it's been a bit of a series of errors that are extremely frustrating. So that's why, Anthony, we switched to global ops, where we're able to see the signals coming directly to the head of the organization. And we can now plant, grow, harvest in the optimal manner. And I'm really happy to say that in the second quarter of 2025, which is our first quarter of our fiscal 26, we're ahead of expectations. So we're seeing really the right steps there. We're able to capture both sales through our network and as well capture a significant bulk sales into the market while increasing at the same time our supply levels for the Canadian rec market. And so it's real internal discipline that's giving me a good level of confidence about the future. And it's pretty simple. And I go back to what I said at the beginning: great talent within the organization that wasn't set up to succeed, a great growing and distribution capabilities, but they just the foundation of great businesses, which is great planning, great communication, great visibility, clear priorities, weren't optimally in place.
So once that foundation is set, the organizational structure is reset, supply chains dialed in, how are you thinking about product, especially domestically in Canada? Are there certain priorities in terms of form factors or somewhere within the market that you see Canopy prioritizing, whether it be value, mid-tier, premium? How are you looking at the product mix moving forward, especially to increase market share in Canada and the medical and the rec side of the business?
Yeah, absolutely. The realignment of the structure is completed. Okay. The supply chain is centralized. We beefed up our S&OP process. We put in place a stage gate process to bring good innovation to market. And we've taken, and we can talk about that later, we've started pretty aggressive cost savings initiatives. So a lot of work has been done in the last few months, and we're already building momentum. Second part of your question, or your main part of your question, for us in Canadian rec, it's pretty simple. It's high quality, high THC flower. Yep. It's pre-rolled joints, and it's vape. And we're really starting to build momentum there. We're not fully walking away from other categories. We're very proud of our entry into edibles. But this is really where the three areas of focus are. We're getting very good feedback from retailers, from consumers, of the quality of our flower, which, in the past, we were spotty. It was, hit and miss. The feedback we're getting the quality of the flower is going through the roof. We launched last year infused pre-rolls, the Claiborne brand.
I noticed
This
that.
continues to grow, and we recently launched vapes under the Tweed brand and 7 Acres, and the early results are very promising. Again, the first few weeks of fiscal 26, which is the second quarter of 25, we're ahead of plan, so it's very promising.
Okay.
Sorry, Shad, I'll let you jump in.
No, I was just going to say, infused pre-rolls, I was reading that Claybourne brand is now ranks top 3 in Canada, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Well, you'd said, like, when you're providing an example before where there's one point of contact person globally now, like, what was it before, and how has that changed, I guess?
Yeah, but listen, before, the Canadian medical business was set up under a Canadian president, and that Canadian president's main responsibilities were Canadian rec. So often the Canadian medical didn't get prioritized. I was a board member prior to being CEO of Canopy, and we rarely got visibility to that medical business. At the same time, we had somebody running international quite independently from the teams and from the operation. So people, with the best of intentions, were trying to drive the connectivity, but the right decisions either did not happen or they happened too late because of the organization being a bit too convoluted for the speed, the agility that the industry requires.
Yeah. How would you best describe the domestic market opportunity, both medically and recreationally? We hear a lot of good stories of how Canada's turning this turnaround story, which is nice to see. And let's face it, there's a lot of great exporting opportunities for the major LPs in Canada. But how would you best describe this domestic market? Because the story we're hearing today is nothing like it was 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at rec, we've got a $5 billion market that's growing at 3 to 4%. I mean, those are pretty healthy figures. I was on the phone an hour ago with one of the largest provincial board, and he was congratulating us and the industries, the LPs at large, with our ability, we've demonstrated over the last 18 months, our ability to bring the quality of the flower up and to bring costs down at the same time, refining the quality of the 2.0 products, so pre-roll joints, vapes, and other transform product. It was complementing us, our ability to bring costs down, quality up, where we're at a place where on some formats we can compete with the illegal trade. So I mean, this is really starting to change the industry from a medical standpoint. The market is relatively flat. But that being said, there are a large group of insured patients that really rely on the power of cannabis to really take them through some really challenging situation, and we see more and more companies or groups of labor groups having access to benefits that allow them through their health benefits to get access to cannabis. So it's the market is solid, the numbers are decent. So there's quite a bit of opportunity for margin creation for all involved there.
Well, I bring it up because I saw some news today about Mark Carney. He really is encouraging more provinces, going to make it less red tape for provinces to actually work in conjunction with each other a lot more, which is encouraging because let's face it, that wasn't in place for quite some time. I think we all know that when it was legalized federally back in 2018, it was like set it and forget it. It was kind of like the model. And I think now that we're maturing and understanding, we have heard some encouraging things that recent trips to Europe by some of the Canadian LPs, they still feel like we're 10 years ahead of competition because we do have it federally legalized. And it'd be curious to see what this Liberal government starts to change from an economic standpoint here in this country, because let's face it, something had to change, and let's hopefully it does. But I know we can get in later with the excise tax, but I still think there's a lot more fish to fry right now pertaining to the economy versus the excise tax related to cannabis. But all in all, it's like it's becoming a good turnaround story, which is a pleasant surprise to see in Canada for sure. But
Yes.
real quick, I just looking at this right now. You cut adjusted EBITDA losses by 60%, slash net debt 597 million to 304 million. So is this sustainable? Is there more room for improvement moving forward based on some of these numbers? Because those are some pretty big numbers that you just outlined.
Yeah, I mean, the actions taken by my predecessor and the team have really started changing the financial structure of Canopy Growth and really starting to create the space within the P&L and the balance sheet to eventually take some really proactive actions to continue to expand Canopy. So, for us, let's talk about EBITDA. So we finished the year at about minus 24 million EBITDA, dramatic improvement over the previous year, but it's not enough. And my priority and the priority of the team is to get us to positive EBITDA. I mean, we over the last few months, we've identified over 20 million of additional cost reduction. We've identified 80% of that. We know exactly what to do for 80% of that. The action plan is there. Half of the 20 million has already been executed. So all this probably is going to happen within the next 12 to 18 months. So you can, you can imagine where that 24 will go. Combine that with growth, with the best of intention. We'll see what happens in the quarters to come. You can see that, the pathway to positive EBITDA is possible. I won't commit on when it's going to happen because God knows what can happen in the industry, in the economy. Yeah. But we're taking the right action, so there is room there to dramatically improve.
Yeah. So one of the brightest spots of the Canopy story has been debt reduction. You guys have reduced your debt by orders of magnitude. Unfortunately, with the debt reduction, there's also been dilution that is involved as well. So what would you say to shareholders that have questions about dilution, and where does further debt reduction to eventually shore up the balance sheet completely stand as far as your priorities moving forward?
Yeah, for me, listen, I'm not going to go too far on that. And we're really focused on near future years, taking actions that we control within our P&L, within our spend to really drive profitability and to drive positive cash flow generation. And that's really where we're focusing things. We can talk more about dilution at a follow-up call, but we're really focused right now in what we have in front of us, and the priority is really positive EBITDA and then dramatic continued improvement on cash flow generation.
Okay. Do mergers and acquisitions interest you at all?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when the time is right and the opportunity is right, I mean, Canopy has a rich history of strategic moves that some have worked, some have not worked. So obviously, we're going to approach that extremely carefully. Yes.
Good. Well, nice to see, as far as this turnaround story within this Canadian market. I don't know if there's anything else I wanted to bring up, but all in all, would you say this was your quarter? Look, you're the CEO of the company. You were brought on in January, but the latest numbers don't have your fingerprints across the entire quarter. But how would you best respond to say something like that?
Yeah, for me, it's this quarter was a turnaround quarter. It was a disappointing quarter for us, as you can imagine. Sales did not go where we optimally expected. What I'll tell you is that we're taking the right actions. I can feel it within the organization. The organization is responding extremely well to my leadership, responding extremely well to this simplified focus. The organization is really energized. As I said earlier, the first few weeks of our fiscal 26, which is the second quarter of 25, we're ahead of plan when it comes to Canadian rec and global medical, which it's been a very long time that Canopy started the year ahead of plan. So we're energized with this, and more to come.
What would you say is the top 3 things that are keeping you up at night still that you want to get improved on?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. We're getting a lot of traction on everything that we're pushing. So I'm sleeping pretty well.
Okay, good to know. All right. We have had a few people comment about Canopy USA, and just to give every full transparency that the team is actually working on getting Brooks on. But right now, again, Canadian international market is basically a lot of your focus, is it not, Luke?
This is really just a sec.
All good.
Yes. Good. I mean, CUSA, for us, I mean, CUSA was an important investment for us. We believe in the future of the US market. Sadly, things are not happening as fast as everybody expected. We've got a new CEO there, which I think we should bring to this forum, that Brooks is really in charge. I sit on the board of CUSA. Brooks could talk at length about what he and the team are doing in the US. You probably heard it on the call last Friday. The acreage part of CUSA is going through some challenging time, like many MSOs are in the US. So through the board, we're monitoring the situation quite closely, and I trust that Brooks and the team are taking the right actions.
Okay, well said. I know that's pretty much all you can say for now, but that's completely understandable. But listen, I know you're in Toronto. Anthony over here is a Florida Panthers fan. Wasn't that a tough series loss?
I know. Yes.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yes.
Now we get Edmonton.
Enough said. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, definitely a step in the right direction along the way. And I think there's a lot of investors here that come on, and it's just like, this is a transition right now. But, next quarter, fingerprints, you're all over this. And
absolutely
righting the ship. And I know you're one to pull the curtain back and say, what was actually some of the challenges that we faced? This is what we have to clean up. But more importantly, what is the strategy moving forward? But I appreciate the update. And good work. And most importantly, let's keep these conversations going, because there's a lot of people interested to see how you guys are going to develop as the year progresses. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Luke. Appreciate your time.
Talk soon.
All right. Yes. Good guy. And, cleaning up a lot of stuff internally. And that's the vibe that I got from that conversation, because it's all about execution. We hear a lot of that from a lot of companies right now. And I know there's a few people that asked, about some CUSA questions, and just be mindful that this is something that, look, there's things that are going on and that they can't comment on, but you heard them loud and clear. There's certain things in the US market that aren't materializing as fast as what they were hoping. And thanks, Captain Obvious, meaning to myself, like, everybody knows that right now based on what's going on in Washington.
As far as numbers go, Acreage was reporting quarterly earnings up until the buyout by CUSA. So, I mean, people knew what was going on at Acreage. That shouldn't be new news to anybody that's been paying attention. They've got Wana, they've got Jetty. I mean, granted, Luke's done a pretty bang up job in the 5 months he's been in the chair. He's not a magician, and nobody can turn something around that quickly. If he says the organizational foundation has been changed and dialed in, it's there. The supply chain's dialed in and it's there. They have a plan. They're expecting growth. They're performing above those KPIs right now. He's going to be held feet to the fire for the quarters to come. So we'll see how Canopy goes and grows into the next couple of quarters. But yeah, I mean, I think that's it's a solid job so far. But yeah, Acreage shouldn't be surprising anyone. We knew what Acreage looked like for a very long time.
Yeah, there's a small knit of Canadians that actually run some of the most successful corporations in the country, and they are a small group of people with CPG type backgrounds, and he's in that group. And I can tell you right now, look, it's still early, but this is a step in the right direction I would take from this latest earnings. But, there's still valid questions that people need to know, but that's what we're going to plan on doing, is kind of similar to what we have with David, is having ongoing conversations. But you heard him loud and clear. It was just someone who headed the Canadian domestic market, only focused on the Canadian market. And this is where one point of contact from a global aspect is probably a smart choice, but that's some of the execution and synergies that need to be implemented. So be curious to see. But as you said, acreage is moving slowly. And the reason why is because there's no reform, obviously, in Washington. And with that, we're going to jump into segment number 2 and talk about cannabis reform. It's time for Insider's Edge. On a Monday afternoon, Shad Dales with Anthony Varrell, Trade to Black podcast, talking anything and everything about cannabis. And it's a big week in PA. Why? Well, let's find out and welcome in the president of ATACH, the American Trade Association for Cannabis and Hemp, and somebody who looks very intelligent with the glasses, the books in the background, Michael Bronstein. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Happy Monday to everybody.
Yes, and hope you had a good week. Did it feel a little shorter with the Monday being off last week?
A little bit shorter. So we'll see. You're on the short hop of the week. I know you had a holiday a couple of weeks ago, and
what was the holiday you were saying? A couple terms. I forget what it was, but
Victoria. There's the Victoria Day. Is that not
good old Victoria Day?
The many made-up holidays in Canada. Family days. There's like 3 of those a year.
Monarch.
Bring King Charles over to speak for 10 minutes and cost taxpayers $9 million. But hey, it had to be done. It had to be done.
It's wild that he's still on your guys' money. Or no, I think it's Queen Elizabeth that's still on the money.
Can't you just do that virtually now?
Well, he's from the British royalty family. He's the king now. So he's Queen Elizabeth passed, and he's now the king.
Yeah, but they don't change it. They change your guys' notes like that for the whoever's.
You mean the actual dollar bill?
The CAD. I'm pretty sure Queen Elizabeth is on one of your bills.
She is. And I'd have to check, man. I'm trying to remember the last time I carried cash. I think it's been a while, but do we still carry cash this day and age? But I'm probably there's probably some King Charles bills out there that are starting to float around Canada. But forget about Canada right now. Let's talk about the U.S. and more specifically the great state, the Keystone State, Pennsylvania. And the Senate is in session this week. So there's going to be a number of bills that are being proposed. What can we expect out of these sessions, these meetings this week, Mr. Bronstein, related to adult use cannabis? Because I'm sure that is going to be, is it safe to say that'll be at the forefront?
This is absolutely a conversation that is at the forefront. We've now officially entered budget season in Pennsylvania. So there's a June 30th deadline, which is sometimes met and other times not, depending on the year. For getting a budget bills in place, and the conversation has centered around cannabis, and it started with the House sending HB 1200 over to the Senate, which was defeated in committee in Law and Justice due to the state store system that was in there, as it should be, and now we have a lot of discussions that are going on around the Senate. Just as recently as the end of last week, Senator Flynn had said that he was going to introduce his own cannabis legalization bill, which is interesting because he also is a Democrat on the Law and Justice Committee. The interesting thing about that is that in this co-sponsorship memo, there's no mention of state stores in it. And he had previously a session ago introduced a bill that had state stores in it, and had said that he wants to keep the conversation moving, that it needs to be a little bit more appealing than the state store system was. Ultimately, it is unlikely to be his vehicle that will be the vehicle. The language that we're waiting on right now are Senator Laughlin and Senator Street, which we're hoping to see over the next over the next couple of weeks. And we're also expecting to see Representative Kincaid and Representative Major drop their bipartisan bill in the House.
Okay.
So the discussion has only intensified, certainly from a public perspective, leading into the budget week. I'll just say that in Harrisburg today, it's sort of it felt like it was the calm before the storm of the budget season, and there are certain things that are coming into place in order to start the negotiations. So,
what do you mean by that?
So
Calm
is
before
it
the storm?
Yeah.
It's a sunny day, walking around the Capitol. There didn't seem to be as much going on. Sometimes you just get a feel
I bet.
for being inside state capitals. When you walk into a state capitol, or you walk into Congress, or you know what's going on, on that thing. And I think that we're going to see things start to intensify a little bit. It sort of feels like, the next couple of days and into next week are going to get, are going to get really tight. So the other thing is we haven't really seen, it was interesting when HB 1200 went over to the Senate. It was kind of a shot across the bow at the beginning of the budget season to figure out whether folks would say, all right, this is going to be a contentious budget season, or it's not going to be a contentious budget season. And that conversation hasn't really played out yet, whether it'll be how contentious it'll be, right? We all know that they have to get at a budget, but are the lines drawn so far that this budget becomes either a point of contention, or it becomes where folks get together.
Yeah.
Maybe they point fingers at the beginning, but then they get to a spot where they're going to trade. And there are a couple of funding items that they have to get done. So
what's this week then? Is it tight-lipped? Nothing's really going to, are we going to know anything by the end of the week?
I think we'll see language. I mean, I don't think that we're going to have a sense of whether Pennsylvania is passing legalization in this budget up to the very last minute. We'll see stuff move around in budget, right? Because anything can, come off the rails, go back on, things like that. But the reality is that there is actually a conversation that's going on. And some of the things that we're hearing is that, Republicans on the Senate side need to hear a little bit more about regulation. We're also hearing that Republican leadership isn't quite there yet on this, which is really to the surprise of nobody. That's stuff that they've said publicly on the Senate side. And, when they get to the table, it's going to be, what do you have? Right? What do you
Is it safe to say state-run stores are dead and we've seen the last of that?
I do think that state-run stores are dead because of what the Senate did, and also some of the talk around it amongst the Senate Democratic caucus, right? If you've got Senator Flynn, who's on that committee, saying, all right, he's moved past that, you have other Democrats saying, well, let's see another bill. Let's see Senator Laughlin and Senator Street's bill. Then effectively it's turned the page. There's also, I think, another telling thing that's going on here around the state store discussion is that we've seen House Democratic leadership. They're now telling folks that if the Senate wants a legalization bill, they have an opportunity to introduce one and to send it over to the House for consideration. And they have not drawn any red lines around that discussion about what it would be, which is consistent with that the House would vote on a bill that is not a state store bill in Pennsylvania. So if you're an existing operator, one of the things that you're interested in, and if folks who are watching this show are likely interested in, is what does the conversion look like? What does the Pennsylvania market look like? And with the state store bill off the table, a real discussion about what conversion in the marketplace looks like is commencing. And one of the things that folks are having to do some education on is just how bad, the New York model was from a conversion perspective, right? Look at surrounding states.
It's wrapped up in litigation. Yeah.
Yeah, wrapped up in litigation. But remember, it's not like people who are in Pennsylvania have spent a whole lot of time, watching what's going on in the New York, legislature, the rollout of the program. So some of the education process that has been happening continues to happen right now on it. And we also saw fees that were very high that were proposed by both the administration in the governor's address, which was a $25 million conversion fee, and then on the House side, which was a $20 million conversion fee, which is,
Do they not understand the current capital constraints of the cannabis industry? None of those medical operators would convert to rec if you slapped them with a $20 to $25 million cash fee. Most of them don't have they do have the cash, but they would be seriously depleting the cash on their balance sheets to pay that to pay that bill, unless we took it out of wrong street to go down. It would not be good. I'll leave it at that.
It would not be good. That's unlikely to happen. There has to be a discussion. There has to be a discussion around the fee discussion, but I do sense that just from conversations that the fee discussion is going to be a lot more rooted now than I think it has before, that people are paying attention to it. And one of the things is it's hard for them to get.
So can I bring something up real quick? If they haven't paid attention as to what's going on to New York, do you think that eventually becomes news pertaining to this, that someone will bring that up based on the challenges they've faced with these the fees of flipping from medical direct? Yeah.
I think that discussion has happened and it's ongoing. That's why I think in the next set of bills that you're likely to see, I think that there will be treatment of the original portion of those fees, because remember, it's not just like is Pennsylvania to be legal or not? The how is very important here. It's very important to all the stakeholders that are at the table. And that's just one of those issues where you can't really set up a functioning market if you don't understand the economics of it. And the cannabis industry is rooted in the laws of gravity, like every other industry.
So question, and I don't want to throw shade on politicians, but we have seen time and time again that the people that are putting these regulatory frameworks together and governing don't fundamentally understand what they are trying to put regulations towards and governing. I mean, we just saw it in Texas with Dan Patrick holding up a bag of Delta 9 THC edibles, saying it's going to kill you, and then endorse the expansion of the teacup program that dispenses Delta 9 THC to his constituents. Is it safe to say that we should believe that the PA regulators and lawmakers are looking to other markets as to best practices to roll out this adult use framework, or is that it's too grandiose of a assumption?
No, I think they'll get there. The people who have to know about it, and they've been brought up to speed. I just think that, for folks who are discerning and following this, that's one of the issues that they probably still see on the table. And what I'm saying is that issue is moving right now in a better, I think in a better direction. I think there is directionality on this, and those who are analyzing the market. Remember, the same legislature that put in arguably one of the best medical marijuana programs in the country is, well, albeit not the same people, the same legislature that is evaluating what adult use opportunity could be. What we were to understand is that what some people have said is the first salvo that was fired in these budget negotiations with HB 1200, which was really not based in any system around the country. So the question was, well, how quickly would they be able to move on and get to where they need to go? And I think that the answer to that is they could move considerably quickly on this, and they are moving quickly to get towards a model. And most of the people who are in the legislature who support a non-state store model understand what a final bill is going to look like, probably 90% of it.
Okay.
Jay Mahler writes, would the medical market go away under adult use? No, it would not.
No. It would not go away. So we did an economic.
We're talking PA, by the way. If people are getting misconstrued here, logging on right now. But go ahead again, Michael.
Yeah, no, it's yeah. So in Pennsylvania, the medical market would not go away. There are a couple different treatments that make sense in Pennsylvania. So one is, this is just from legislative drafting. One would be a repeal of Act 16 and a replace with a adult use bill. And then the regulator, there's discussion about who the regulator should be, but that a lot of the discussion is centered on having one regulator on this, and then having kind of the different regulatory components under that regulator. So whether it's an independent regulator, whether it's the Department of Agriculture that's been proposed by the governor, the basic premise is that there is one spot that is going to be the regulator for both cannabis and hemp in Pennsylvania.
Well, scaling back to what Anthony brought up about Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, Brian Dabrowski, great comment. Screwed the pooch with his adults can't make their own decisions rant. Yeah. Representative Brian Harrison crushed it with his veto SB3 statement. Texas is heating up, gentlemen. And I have to admit, it seemed like a foregone conclusion he was going to sign off on this a week and a half. Do you go ahead, Anthony?
But doesn't he have until the end of the day today to sign it? And if he doesn't sign it, it just goes into law.
If it was in the last 10 days if it was in that last 10-day window, then he has until the 20th to do it.
Okay. Because he can sit on his hands and do nothing, to where he doesn't have to sign it. And as long as that time frame elapses, it goes effective into law.
Right. And I think that there's been there's obviously been a lot of noise around that bill. And I think that press conference was, there's really very few words to describe what the press conference, what that press conference was like. And I think that it's just interesting from a policy development, right? We have the expansion of the medical program that was voted on shortly thereafter. I think that if there was concerted coordination politically, I think that some of the messaging might be a little bit different. I also think that the press conference, clearly showed that, I think there are questions about what's going to happen with this bill and where the governor, may or may not be on it. I do think that that's an open-ended question. There's certainly been a lot of advocacy activity, around it too.
I don't think he's for it, to be completely honest. I think this is the work of the lieutenant governor and certain politicians within the state of Texas. I really don't think Abbott is for a blanket ban, especially when you get into the veterans side of it and the loss of jobs, the loss of revenue. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like,
check this out.
I think that
Go finish your thought.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying the press conference with the hemp side of the Capitol this morning, 16,000 plus letters were delivered to the office today.
I saw a tweet that said a couple 100,000. There were boxes and boxes of filing papers.
Michael,
that were dropped off.
Do you agree with what Anthony said? Do you think Abbott does not want this, or is it just
a couple things? I mean, there are a couple. So I saw one of his. It's interesting from a political analysis perspective, right? You don't know what was necessarily traded around the budget too. Was this part of something larger, or wasn't it? Right? Is there enough heat, coming on, is there enough heat where he's at on this to kind of move towards a veto? In the last session, there were a lot of vetoes. But the other thing is that the there was less, there was more contention around last session in Texas than there was in this session with certain issues that were getting wrapped up. Interestingly, so one of the pollsters that was in state was basically saying, they think that with some of the polling that they have, that it's maybe a big issue to us, but it's not like a big issue in general in Texas, even though folks are reporting a lot on it. And
I keep hearing that everywhere, but you hear that everywhere, but it's how many 100,000s of petitions signed? Like
I agree. I mean, I think it's probably the most watched bill.
It's just not good. It's not good policy at the end of the day. I mean, a blanket ban is just not good policy.
No.
If they wanted to do it, go ahead.
If you have the legislature, so there's a couple of ways. If you're a governor, there are a couple of ways that usually handle a situation like this. And let me talk to you as like a political strategist, as opposed to head of trade association, right? So generally, what would happen is in a case like this, if there's enough noise, then it can throw the politics off as to where it is, or can help make a decision, where these things are. The other thing on it from a governor's perspective is to look at the chambers too. Say, all right, well, where is the chamber at, right? Was there another deal that was on the table here where there were promises that were made relative to other legislation? We don't know that. No one knows that right now. That hasn't really been, aside from what we heard on education funding and some of the things that were going on in state, nobody knows how wide the scope of that is. So it's kind of like, all right, so if you're advising a governor on any contentious issue, right, you're probably polling it yourself. You're probably taking a look at it. If it's a major contentious issue, you're probably getting your own numbers on it. And then you're probably like thinking about the political calculus of it. All right, where'd it go through both of those chambers? And then it's like, now there's kind of three things. Do I sign, right? Do I sign it? Do I not sign it and just let it go through, right? Or do I veto it? So it's like there's three things that could happen on there. And if you're kind of like wavering as to where it is, you may just not sign the bill and have it go into law. If you're not going to sign the bill, or you take the action to go and veto. But those are the things that would be discussed behind the scenes.
So let's play the whole tape through. He signs it, onslaught of lawsuits, I would think, after that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And
yes, there'd be a lot. Yeah, there'd be a lawsuit on it. But the thing is like, so what we've seen with these lawsuits in states is a lot of them recently have upheld the state's ability to regulate hemp products.
Okay.
Right? So I think that, like, we just saw one, like Alaska was the most recent one, where they basically they basically threw the case out, and the federal judge was like, hey, on the merits, we know that this likely isn't challengeable. So I think there would be a lawsuit, but I think that it's different now than it was a few years ago after kind of the first ruling came out out west. But there would be a lawsuit in my view.
Okay, so in the event he doesn't sign it, then what happens? Does everything stay the status quo as it is now? Then what?
It's law.
It's law. Yeah. It goes into law. And then you have a lawsuit.
I'm saying him not signing it and letting the time elapse is the same thing as signing it.
So if he vetoes it, then what?
I think it's politically. I think the thing is politically different. Say it gets hot.
Very, very much.
And you're like, all right, this is the lieutenant governor's issue. It's like,
I wouldn't sign it.
The legislature passed it.
Yeah, right? I wouldn't sign it. If that was on my desk and politically it was charged, if I don't want to veto it, I'm probably screwed. Signing it, I'm probably screwed. I'm just letting time elapse and just letting the damn thing go into law that the lawmakers that were voted into those positions thought should go through. And then I get a little bit of deniability as well as some cover fire, and just let it elapse. That's the smart thing to do.
That's politics, right? That's political. Like, that's the political answer. Unless there's too much and you're like, okay, well, I don't want to take the heat for that, and I want to go, and I'd go veto it.
Yeah.
But, there's a lot of decision making that goes on to it. But I think the most logical thing, from a political perspective, is like, okay, they don't, you don't sign the bill.
I think vetoing it puts him in a really tough spot with his lieutenant governor and the rest of his allies within the state of Texas, because this seems like something they vehemently want.
If you veto it, you own the issue.
Correct.
They know that. Right.
Yeah.
If you sign it, you own the, like, you know what I mean? So like, that's why you can do, like,
that's why
there's optionality.
I'm letting it go.
That's why there's
apps.
optionality on there. And I don't think, I think that I think that the press conference, the noise that's been in state, all of that stuff, right, and the media coverage around it has all been, I think, very, it's been loud.
Absolutely.
Where did it?
I mean, that press conference was the worst thing that could happen for SB3 actually passing. I mean, he, with all due respect, he looked like an idiot in that press conference because he not only was completely wrong as it related to the subject matter, talking about THC, but at the same time, he was also portraying Texas as being a nanny state. And Texas prides itself on freedom. He was sitting there saying, I know it's in the best interest of the 20, 30, and 40-year-olds in my state. Like, dude, get out of here. Like, you have no right to sit here and tell an adult what to do at the end of the day. And that just compounded the notion that assigning it is just preposterous. He shot himself in the foot.
Anthony Cogniglio is on with us right now. Great comment. Agree with AV unless he decides to pair the signing of SB3 with expansion of teacup. That's an interesting angle.
But still.
Yeah, I mean, the messaging. I mean, I think that the messaging, like, that is the obvious messaging, right? Politically. It's like, okay, actually, we're expanding, the medical. This is from a political perspective. Obviously, we're expanding the medical program because here's the thing. If you went out and you polled it, the medical program would be the medical program, and we know the medical program is not good in Texas, right?
It's awful.
But medical marijuana would test very high. Medical marijuana tests higher than adult use.
But here's the thing. And I'm just saying this anecdotally. From what I know, and I know cannabis consumers quite well, those people that are spending the billions of dollars annually on those hemp products are not going to go into the teacup program. They're going to go to they're going to the illicit market. They're going right back to the illicit market and buying it there. They're not going to go into teacup.
No, I think that's right. The question is, how are you making the political argument, right? Because remember, this is politics. Okay. It's clear that there's not necessarily an understanding of the industry in state by politicians.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. So, Texas had an opportunity to do something revolutionary in the United States. If they would have just taken that hemp industry and flipped it into an adult use cannabis industry, grandfathered in the good actors, gave them licenses, and instantly created a $1 billion industry in the state of Texas that they could then tax and control, it would have set the precedent for cannabis policy in the United States.
Do you know what the thing is?
They're going way backwards.
It also would have proved the thesis that, okay, from a regulatory perspective, like hemp, like an adult use hemp program can push the legalization discussion forward.
I mean, it is though. Hemp is doing that for us in certain ways.
In this case,
it's not.
Well, that's the issue. I mean, it's one of the biggest markets it's one of the biggest markets in the country. And I think that people have to find their footing, and we still have this issue, the folks who are on, like, I'm still going to like websites and seeing HHC sold by people who are advocating the most vociferously,
correct. And that's why I was like, celebrate. I put out a tweet that was probably dumb to put out, but I was like, cue the music. Let's celebrate SB3 passing. I didn't really mean that. Obviously, I'm not celebrating access going backwards in terms of cannabinoids. But my problem is the guys that are selling THCA flower that still has a valid COA, still have HHC and THCP and all that synthetic BS on the shelf as well, because it sells. And the only way to get that out of there is that ban, unfortunately, because it's not going away any other way.
The other thing is that this kind of pushes, and it's interesting because I was having this conversation with somebody the other day.
Yep.
I think that this pushes an open-ended question from an industry side, right? We moved from like, all right, free the plant, right? Which was flour, and some other products, right? The way that cannabis was consumed, to a discussion of full on, cannabinoids, right? Which is a different, it would be regulated different too. So the whole idea of how you think about that also has wide implication for how you look at federal reform, right? One
Correct.
kind of points you towards FDA whack-a-mole, okay? And the other one kind of points you towards regulating marijuana like alcohol.
Yeah.
Right. Which is what was campaigned for in the beginning of this industry. So you're seeing that push and pull, amongst that argument.
You keep hearing this as well. Go ahead.
I was going to say, at the same time, like these operators that are in Texas that are making boatloads of money, if they're not willing to go into a regulated industry where they're actually going to have to run an above board business and they don't want to do that, then they don't deserve the right to sell THC. Like there has to be some sort of give and take here. There's, as much as I'd love there to just be a complete free market, you could do whatever the hell you want and just sell shit to customers. They need to understand that they need to be in some sort of compliance and answer to somebody at the end of the day, because they have the right to sell THC, just not the right to do it on absolutely their terms.
Mike,
I think we have to separate the industrial definition from the.
Well, that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, but I mean, it is somewhat here. I mean, when you look at what happened with Texas, and the lead up to this, there was certainly those conversations, and I think that the problem is because it was so unsettled to begin with, that we're now having different states address those issues. There were 40 states. We just researched. There were 40 states in this last legislative session that had some level of hemp regulation that was going on in it as a direct result.
Florida's
Farm Bill was.
Florida's got regs hitting 615. They've now got moisture control. They've got mandatory childproof packaging. There's like a Dank Informer pulled it up. There's like 7 regs that are going through. They're also clamping down on COAs, which I'm not sure how they're going to do that or what regulatory body within the DOH in Florida is actually going to do that, because that's going to take a hell of a lot of enforcement. But they're at least putting more stringent regulations in place on 615 in Florida.
Yeah.
So let's recap this then right now. What is your role pertaining to Texas, and Pennsylvania as we start to heat up with obviously adult use in PA and everything that's going on? But what are you looking to achieve right now, so that way people can get under better understanding as to why they should contact you?
I think I think in Pennsylvania, it's pretty specific, and I think legalization is on the table through this budget period. Through this budget period in Pennsylvania, I do think that there is a lot of discussion that we're gonna see happen, and I think that there really has to be a real push around this in Pennsylvania, because you've got Senate Republicans who right now are trying to figure out what it is that they need to do on this bill. You've got a bunch of folks that are trying to figure out how to make this political deal work. And then I would suggest that, like in other states, you can find, by the way, all of our state level work on the website, not just Pennsylvania, Texas. You can check all that stuff out. We've been doing a lot of stuff on, beverage standardization, as well as it pertains to a number of different states. And also, dealing with this whole issue of synthetic THC derivative products, which is in our view hurting the regulation of these products. So I think that we're I think that there's a lot of innings in this game right now, and there are multiple states that are going on, and we're going to have to keep our eye on all of them.
Yeah, I know. It's fun to talk about it, but at least there's something to talk about. But Anthony Cogniglia said it best, whether it's Pennsylvania, Texas, we need some direction from Washington. And he writes, for ingestible products, the FDA is the party to answer to. Since the FDA is nowhere to be found, the states are stepping in to regulate. And that is the reality.
Couldn't agree more with that.
Yeah. Spot on.
Yeah. All right, sir. Listen, always good catching up with you. I guess if we get us some small snippets of news later this week, let's have you back on and what it might mean. Okay.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate your time. All right. good guy and great feedback. That was good. You had some great takes there. But, the big takeaway as far as PA is they're in session. So let's find out what it's going to be. But this isn't going to be tight-lipped. There's going to be small incremental news that'll come out along the way. Won't be the final ruling, but let's find out. It's moment of truth time as we're now into June for adult use pertaining to PA. And would that be nice, because this industry needs it.
Yeah, definitely would be.
All right, sir. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and let us know your feedback, everybody, what you thought of the interview with Luke. Any other questions you want us to ask him, we'll reach out to him regarding to Canopy growth, and any direction that you want pertaining to it, let us know. Also, your thoughts on Texas and Pennsylvania. What do you think is going to happen next? Love to get your feedback. Let's keep the conversations going. Make sure to scan that QR code right there and subscribe to our Baked In newsletter. It gives you all the latest information on the business and reform side, which you're going to need updates on every single day this week. So make sure you scan that QR code. One last thing, only 18% of our audience on YouTube are subscribers. So subscribe to our channel. We're about to hit the 50,000 mark, but man, if only 18% of our audience is subscribed right now, please, if you get a chance, greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe to our channel. AV, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. I'll see you back here Wednesday at 4 o'clock. Hopefully we get Christian Egermeyer on, because Atai had some great news.
Yeah,
great news.
with ATACH was good news.
Yeah. All right. See you back here Wednesday.
See ya.
Well, I liked that one, didn't you? Let us know by leaving your comments below, and stay connected with us here at the Trade to Black podcast. We appreciate you logging on here today and learning more information about where this industry is headed. If you have time, make sure to like, subscribe, and smash on that bell for all notifications, and keep the conversation going by leaving some comments below. We always love to get your feedback. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks again for watching our latest Trade to Black podcast.